Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of She Plays Games, the podcast where we celebrate women in the video games industry. I'm your host, Lauren, and I've been working as a journalist and content creator in the games industry for the last 10 years. On my show, I have a chat with women of many different roles within the games industry, whether it's journalism, games development, or even streaming. My goal is to give visibility to the many women in video games with hopes to inspire a new generation of women in games. Before we get on to today's episode, I wanted to mention that we've started our She Plays Games Indie Games Club. You all voted, and I'm happy to announce that for the month of April, we'll be playing through A Short Hike as a community. A Short Hike is an indie adventure video game developed and published by Canadian programmer Adam Robinson Yu. It's an open-world exploration game where you get to meet a whole cast of adorable characters while attempting to climb a mountain. If you would like to join us, please head over to our Indie Games Club channel on our Discord. Also, we'll be having a voice chat meeting on April 9th at 5 p.m. GMT. I hope to see you there. On today's episode, I'm speaking with Antonella Pounder. Now working as the Director of Global Community at 505 Games, Antonella has risen rapidly over the past few years. But even though she now looks after the communication strategies for huge games like Control and Death Stranding, it was not the career she envisioned for herself after leaving university. In today's show, we talk about some very valuable tips for community management, getting over the fear of sunk cost, and being open to other opportunities that may come your way. This is episode 41 of She Plays Games. Thank you so much, Antonella, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here.
I mean, it's been a crazy time, hasn't it? Like, your work at 505 Games has been incredible. You've been able to achieve just like so much. What has this year been like for you?
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's definitely been interesting. I think, we have to count our blessings in that, we are in an industry that is thriving in this current situation that we all find ourselves in. Working from home is, it's new to me. I'm, very much, I prefer being in the office a lot of the time. I'm a bit of a social butterfly. I like to spend time, with my colleagues. And, when that's taken away from you, it takes a bit of time to get used to. But we've been working on some incredible projects over the last 12 months that has, really kept me busy and, the rest of the team busy. And ultimately, we're all in this together. It's not like, we're a global team and everybody's in the same boat. And, everyone's been incredibly supportive. And we've achieved some really cool things over the past 12 months. And, it's really nice to be part of the 505 family and see the successes that have come out of the past 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, that is the sort of crazy thing is the fact that like what a time for this to have happened like 10 years ago. I don't know if we would have handled this quite as like I want to say well, but like like we've been able to manage working from home.
Yeah, I don't know how I would have done it 10 years ago. I remember actually saying to a colleague a few years ago, like, I don't think I could work from home permanently. I'm not sure that would be for me. And then obviously we're forced into that situation and you do adapt and it does take a little bit of time. And I remember initially, I do remember when we found out we were working from home on the Friday before we, were packing our bags for what was meant to be 2 weeks initially. I was like, should we just order some food in? Because we're not going to see each other for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, let's do it. So we got pizzas in and little did we know what was actually ahead of us. And 2 weeks turned into, well, at the minute, 54 weeks maybe. I don't even know at this point.
I know. It's just blurred. It's just all gone. But at least you got some pizza.
I mean, absolutely. Exactly.
When you're going to go down, you might as well go down with pizza.
Exactly that. So, we ended on a high, and then we packed our bags and thought, well, we'll see each other in a couple of weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
So have you been in the office at all in that time then?
I have. So, we had the office open when things were, when things calmed down over summer.
Like eased. Yeah.
Yeah. The office was open for us to go in incredibly small numbers, and it was all, COVID safe, and but it was a case of only going if you absolutely have to. And I went in maybe 3 times, and I'll be completely honest, I didn't get that much work done those days because we were too busy just nattering with each other, because we hadn't seen each other for such a long time. And while there was maybe 3 or 4 of us in the office max at any given time, it was nice. And I think from a mental well-being standpoint, it made a huge difference. And while, again, we're very fortunate to be in the situation we're in, I do miss that, in real life, FaceTime with people. It's so difficult to replicate that behind a screen. We're very lucky. We've got the technology, but ultimately it's not the same as actually meeting up with people in real life. And, you spend more time, with your work colleagues than you do with your own family a lot of the times. They do feel,
sadly,
they do feel like an extension of your family, and when that's taken away, it is a little bit of a shock to the system, but I think we've done a really good job at adapting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's that sort of trying to manufacture office banter at the moment that I think is getting really tiresome.
It is. And I was talking earlier this week with somebody about the whole Zoom fatigue thing. And, we do a happy hour every Friday, late in the afternoon. And it is difficult to, try and rally the troops and get everybody on them, because there is this thing about forced fun, and people I think at this point, people are a little bit tired. And
Jackbox Games hasn't come out with enough stuff to fulfill us.
Oh my God. I mean, that took up all my time last year. It was all Jackbox, and then, Among Us came onto the scene. But, again, not that you get tired of it, but everything feels a little bit repetitive, and there's only so much of this stuff you can do before you go, actually, I need something else. But then it's like, well, I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. But it's difficult.
But on lighter topics, in lighter times. So when you sort of started on your journey, you were actually going to university for design and computer animation initially. So now that you're in community, what made you sort of change your gears?
It's a really interesting question. And when people, ask me, how did you get into community management? I'm like, don't take my advice, because my route was completely, unconventional. It really was. So, from a very young age, my kind of ambition was to become an animator or a 3D artist. And I built up a really strong art portfolio, with that in mind. I went to college and I did my GCSEs in art and graphics, went to college and did photography and graphics, all that stuff. And then, went to university, and I did computer animation and special effects, because I thought to myself, well, that will allow me to get into this role that I want to get into in games or animation. So I was trying to keep my options, open. And then when I graduated at university, I just started a job at Ubisoft as a functionality tester. And, that was great. I actually really, I loved working in that role. But ultimately it wasn't what I wanted to do long term. My aim was still to get into, at this point, it was 3D, to be a 3D artist. And when I went from Just Dance to Watch Dogs, an opportunity came up internally to be in the vehicle artist department. It was a junior vehicle artist role, and I thought, what, I'll give it a shot. This is like the dream job, and I went for it. And it's the weirdest feeling in the world when you've spent 18 years in education trying to get to a point where that dream job is literally right in front of you. And I did the test that was required as part of the interview process, and I really didn't enjoy it. And it was the weirdest feeling when you're targeting something and it doesn't happen, or your feelings change. And I ended up in this really weird stage of limbo where I'm like, oh my God, I've literally just spent so much of my life aiming to go towards this one thing. And when it's come to it, I'm just not enjoying this. And it was really weird, because I was enjoying, working in QA, and I'd moved into a development tester role at that point. And I was enjoying that, but it's still ultimately wasn't what I wanted to do full time. Anyway, long story short, there is a lot I do on social media. I engage quite a lot, with people who I share the same interests with. And one of my interests is around motorsport and Formula One. And I built up, a fairly nice sized community on my own channel, and I engaged a lot with teams and drivers and all that good stuff. And the communications manager at Ubisoft basically approached me and said, I've seen what you do on social media. Are you interested in, looking after the Ubisoft Reflections social media accounts? And I was like, I never even thought about doing this. And she was like, yeah. She goes, it's a community developer role. You can do it part-time. If you're interested, this is an opportunity for you. And I was like, you know what, let's give it a shot. And I absolutely loved it. And I didn't realize actually that, oh my God, this is actually my dream role. And I just never knew it really existed. I always thought that this fell, under the marketing umbrella with a marketing manager or whatever. I didn't realize that in actual fact, there were these dedicated roles for community. And I think it was just because community was still in its infancy at that point. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. And I then found myself enjoying that more than my full-time job. And I was on a fixed-term contract at Ubisoft. And when that came to an end, I made it my goal to secure a full-time position in community management. And thankfully, that came about not too long after when I secured a role at Natural Motion.
I think it is the thing, though, sort of considering how things have developed over the last 10 years, at least from my perspective, it's like, considering how things evolve, like roles that didn't exist back then are existing now just because there's like this real need for it. And I remember when I was interning at this random company in America, and they didn't have a social media manager back then, but I was kind of doing like social sort of work for them, like trying to come up, like manufacture like social media plans and stuff. And it's like, it's so interesting how like community management in games has also kind of gone with that. And it's nice that you had somebody who came to you and just like, well, look, you're doing this really well. Do you want to just do it as a job? Like that's really, really, that's really awesome.
I'm really thankful to her because like I say, I was in this weird stage of limbo, and I've always been the kind of person that has to have the next 5-10 years mapped out. And then when something like this happens, it completely knocks you. And, I still speak with her now, and I'm forever grateful for, the support that she gave me, because I honestly would not be here doing what I'm doing now without, her identifying, this potential in me that I didn't realize I had. So yeah.
And you really do need those people. You need those people who are kind of just looking out for you, or just looking out for potential in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's also really good that you identified as well something that wasn't making you happy, because like I think there's a lot of people who would stick with it because that's what they worked towards, because sometimes our society, I don't know, tells you that you should just stick with something even if you hate it, because eventually you'll like it. And it's just kind of like, but I'm not liking it.
Exactly that. And this is, whenever I get any, questions from students or whatever, if I ever do any kind of like talks or whatever, the one piece of advice I always give is, don't be afraid to change the direction that you're going in. Don't be afraid. Don't see it as a setback. Don't see it as a failure. Because I certainly did for a while. But in actual fact, I think you only restrict yourself. We're all our own worst enemies, I find. And I think especially with this industry, you have to be a little bit flexible. I always say, okay, you want to be an animator, that's great, but look at other opportunities as well. And again, don't be afraid to change the direction that, you're going in, because there's no harm in switching over to a different field at all.
Yeah. And I mean, like you can always kind of do both, like the people who are working in the industry, but then like moonlight on streams as like a 3D artist and that type of thing. Like you can always sort of go back to it. I mean, have you done like much artwork since sort of saying arrivederci to it?
No, I haven't. Not 3D artwork.
Just in your free time, at least.
Yeah, no, I haven't. And the only reason being is, you know, I'm the kind of person that when I devote myself to something, I put like everything into that. And I just didn't have, you know, the headspace to try and do the two things. And I think as well, I kind of closed the book on, you know, the 3D artist ambition. And I kind of went, you know what, that is not for me. I'm not going to focus any time and effort onto that. You know, now it's about community management, because this is clearly something that, you know, I'm very passionate about. And, you know, I made it, you know, all my effort went into that. I mean, I still do. I'm still a very creative person, but, you know, community management is a creative role. And
it is.
When you work at a studio like 505, you know, we have a creative services team, but, you know, we can also do bits and pieces ourselves for social media. So I can still express my creativity just in other ways, and I can still apply it in my role just in a different way.
It's just in your toolkit type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is also really good. And at 505 Games, you've worked on like so many different games at so many different times, creating social content planning, community strategy. How do you manage to like keep everything organized when you're switching between projects? I
think it's definitely changed a lot in the last 6 months since I've moved into the role I'm in now. So now I head up our global team of community managers. We're still a small team, but yeah, I also oversee our portfolio of premium titles. So there's a lot going on. But our community managers, you know, they're super self-sufficient. You know, they do a phenomenal job. And so when it comes to organizing things for, say, their projects, you know, they know what they need to do. They crack on. You know, I'm here to support them and help them. So that's fine. You know, I also look after my own games as well. That was really important to me. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but you know, that was
tangents
really,
are good.
That was really important to me because, you know, I wanted to stay grounded in that I still want to do the nitty gritty. So I look after Death Stranding on PC and Assetto Corsa and a few other, you know, some smaller games as well. You know, I think in terms of staying organized, I think it's really important to have an understanding as to where the priorities are within the business. You know, we're so embedded in our titles that we work on, so we kind of know what's important to, you know, the business and what isn't. You know, the way we do community management here is a community manager is assigned a title by a brand manager, and then they go away and they know that they need to work on a social strategy, you know, which is like the narrative. What is the story you're looking to tell between, say, announcement and launch? You know, we have the calendars. We've got a lot of new procedures in place and, you know, templates and all that kind of nitty gritty stuff that, you know, our team can jump into to keep them organized. You know, we use the likes of Microsoft Teams and tasks for me to manage the workload of our team. You know, I check in regularly with these guys as well. You know, we have weekly one-to-ones. We have a group catch up. You know, ultimately is, you know, it might sound like common sense, but, you know, we have to plan effectively. We have to, you know, use our time efficiently. And I tend to spend my mornings, you know, obviously catching up with emails and all that fun stuff. If I've got content going out for any of my titles, I get that scheduled in. If I can, you know, a quick social sweep across our multiple titles to make sure there are no fires. But every day does vary. I mean, you know, if you speak to anyone working in community management, they'll tell you that not one day is the same. So it is really, you know, it can be difficult to stay organized when switching between projects, but like I say, we're so embedded in the projects we work on that we kind of understand, you know, where the business's priorities are, and we adapt. We you know, it's so important that we stay organized, but we have to be really good at being reactive as well. So if an ad hoc request comes in that's deemed as, you know, urgent, we have to be able to drop everything and jump on that.
I always feel like it's hard. Like, I don't know how you like deal with the patience thing. Like, I always feel like when I'm sitting on like something like a campaign or something, I'm always just like, I just want to share this right now. I know that I haven't like looked through it. I know I haven't talked to anybody about it, but I just want to send this right now because I'm really excited about it.
Oh,
like,
goodness. Yeah. Like I remember when actually when I found out I was working on Death Stranding. And I remember going into the weekend, and I think, was it no, it wasn't Eurogamer. Was it Comic-Con? I can't remember. I went there with some friends, and one of my friends is a really, really big Hideo Kojima fan. And we're walking around the show floor, and he's like, I'm going to go to Insert Coin. I'm going to go look at the Kojima Productions merchandise. And I knew that, the following week we were about to announce that, 505 are publishing Death Stranding on PC. And, poker face throughout the whole weekend. Obviously, I'm super paranoid about, that stuff. And I remember going through that whole weekend where my friend is like sending me pictures of, oh, what do you think of this jumper? I'm like, yeah, it's great. And I remember him saying like, oh, I'm really excited for Death Stranding. They had a big Death Stranding PS4 booth. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. And inside I'm like, oh my God, like, because I knew what was coming. And then the following week when we announced, I messaged him and I said,
I'm so sorry.
I was like, there's this thing that we're involved in. And he just looked and was like, are you actually kidding me? Nope, no, definitely not kidding. But no, I totally get it. There's, the great thing at 505 is there's very little red tape. So we are, well in our rights to come up with whatever campaigns we want to come up with. I encourage my community team to be ambitious with their ideas and think outside the box. And it is difficult, obviously, to keep things quiet, especially when something big is coming and you're about to announce. But I love it. I absolutely love it. It's one of the best things about working in this role.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's just, and especially with things like Death Stranding and like Control as well. It's just, it's also exciting.
It is exciting, and Control is it's been a phenomenal project to work on. I was fortunate enough to go out to E3 the year that we announced.
Really?
It was part of the PlayStation showcase thing.
Whatever they experience.
It was. Yeah. So it was part of the unveiling that show that PlayStation were doing, and there's something quite nerve-wracking about that, but it was brilliant. The reception was overwhelmingly positive, and it's been a really cool project to work on. And when I moved into a director role, I couldn't keep hold of all these games, and Control was one of my babies. And it's like, I'm going to have to hand this over. And I handed it over to one of my community managers who, she's doing a phenomenal job with it. And I'm just looking over like a proud mum going, but she's doing a really good job. And the content from the community that we get off the back of that game is phenomenal. It's amazing.
I mean, it's such a cool game to like play. And I mean, I've been sort of watching my husband Daryl play it because he's just desperately trying to finish it and get the platinum. Of course, I'm not much for like the platinum. I'm always just kind of like, I've done my bit, I've done my part, because I'm just like,
no, I'm the same. There's too many games to play.
There's way too many. And like some of the platinums, I'm just like, this will take me so long. This will take me so long to do. And I don't want to like not love the game after I've gotten the platinum as well. But he's been playing Control, and it just looks gorgeous. It looks so gorgeous.
Remedy have done the most phenomenal job on that game. And, on next gen in particular, it looks... it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. They've done, a remarkable job.
So on that note, as far as community management goes, what sort of skills do you think that an aspiring community manager should like fine tune or explore?
It's an interesting one. I think there is this weird, perception that community managers sit on Facebook and Twitter all day, which couldn't be further from the truth. A great community manager needs to have patience, empathy, so important. Of course, strong communication, organisation skills as well. I think community managers need to be agile, reactive, while also being, an organised planner as well. The role at 505 is split into 3 different areas. You've got the planning, the doing, and the reporting. And I think any aspiring community manager needs to understand that it's not all about having a social presence. It's not all about, like I said, posting on Facebook and Twitter. You need to have an analytical mindset. And everything we do has a reason and a purpose. We don't just post on social media for the sake of it. Whether everything has an objective, whether that's to incentivize conversions. And when I say conversions, I'm not just talking about sales. It could be a click through, it could be a sign up, for example. It could be a like or a follow on a page in order to build, say, growth or engagement or whatever. Aspiring community managers also, I think, need to be, like I said, data driven to a certain extent. And I think a great community manager also needs to be, well, I believe a great community manager needs to be trusted. You are going to be the face of the brand. You are going to be, I've said this before in other interviews I've done, you are going to be effectively the company's biggest advocate. So make sure, you've got a clean social media profile. You're careful with what you say. I'd say if you are wanting to get into this field, look for opportunities to kind of get involved in official events. That can be in beta testing, for example, official moderation. We've got so many Discord servers and we have moderators left, right and centre that help us out with these things. And one of the most heartwarming things for me in my career so far was when we had a moderator in our 505 space that was looking after our Discord server. He had this aim to one day obviously get into the field. And months down the line, he reached out and said, I've managed to land my first role in community management full time. And it was the sweetest thing. And it was so heartwarming. And that's the kind of thing aspiring community managers should work on. Look for these opportunities because they are out there. Don't be afraid to, reach out to brands and chat to brands online and ask questions. All that stuff is really, really important. But I'd say aspiring community managers need to think from an analytical perspective as well as, a content perspective, and look to get involved in, official opportunities that do come up.
Yeah, I mean, the attention to detail that it takes to be a community manager is just so intense, especially considering the fact that Twitter still lacks an edit button. Why does it still not have an edit button?
Yeah, I mean, the number of times we've gone live with a piece of content and I've seen a typo, but at that point, the engagement's already better than anything else we've put out last week. So at that point, we think to ourselves, well, we're not going to remove it now, are we?
No, we're just going to leave it. But it is that thing where you're just kind of like, oh, for frick's sake.
Exactly. But that. Exactly that.
Yeah. But I like the point about, I love the point about being a moderator, because I feel like that is kind of like the starting community manager type thing, because you are doing a lot of the things that you're developing a lot of the skills and the techniques that you need in order to be an effective community manager in like the sort of more public sense. And I think that is so important.
It really is. And I really like it when, we I say hire moderators, but we get moderators to come on board and help us out, because, we were all in that kind of situation once where we were trying to get into this field, and it is difficult, and the opportunities are out there. You just need to look for them. And I'd also say, look at freelancing opportunities as well. Get your work out there. We want to see you play a positive role within the communities that you exist in, if that makes sense. I think that's so important. Building your own community is fine. Of course it is. But I want to see, if you haven't got the experience, and I would say looking for a junior, I'd want to see what you were doing to be proactive. What activities are you getting involved in? If you come to me and say, oh, I've actually been a moderator for this Discord server, this subreddit, whatever. That's the kind of stuff that's really, really impressive. And like I say, if you take up freelance opportunities and you've got work out there that we can look at, because copywriting skills is obviously key in this role. That stuff is gold. It really is.
And you've said that one of your goals is to have your games development be as transparent as possible. There seems to be a real theme of studios wanting to be as secretive as possible about everything in the games development, which, like, for a community manager as well, it must be so difficult, because you're just like, but this is really cool. Like, why can't we share this? And it's just like, no, because that would be spoilers. Do you find that studios are starting to come around to the idea of being more transparent, or is it still very much no?
I think we're getting better. We at 505, we're super fortunate to work with such amazing development teams. And we have to put together those campaigns that, convince these guys that it's a good idea to show your behind the scenes stuff. It's a good idea to talk about, X, Y, and Z. The interesting thing I found was when I started working at 505 back in January 2016, the first title I was assigned was an early access game. And I'd never worked on an early access game before. And that when you're dealing with a title like that, it's all about transparency. It's all about involving the community and making them feel like they're an extension of your team. And I remember there was a point where we were talking about maybe putting a roadmap out there and talking about, just tell them we're working on this, that, and the other. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I've never had the opportunity to be so open before. And it's even got to the point now where we are so transparent that we actually tell our communities if we've got a hotfix in for submission and it fails. We are very open and we'll say, we know that you guys were waiting for this particular hotfix. Well, in actual fact, it did fail submission. So we need to go back. We need to get back into QA and we'll keep you updated. I think we're getting a lot better at that. And I think, being transparent really helps put some of those fires out. I just think sometimes hiding behind, basically just hiding in a corner and trying to ignore it, it doesn't work. And I've also found as well, some of our most engaging content has actually been where we have shown things from behind the scenes, or we have basically told the community, we know you're upset about X, Y, and Z, but this is what we're actually going to do to fix it. So yeah, that's what I'd say. It's definitely getting better. I think there is a thing as well as being too transparent, because I think if you are too transparent, then people read into everything.
Exactly.
You've got to get that balance. But, these things, if it's potentially going to be controversial, then it's like, okay, it's a team effort. And, but yeah, I'm a firm believer in, transparency and honesty is key.
I think we really need more of it anyway, just because of the fact that there's such misconceptions around consumers, the fact that there's so many people who don't really understand what goes into game development, because they just don't see it. It's just the wildest things about games development is that it's still very it's just still very hidden in comparison to say making movies. There's behind the scenes footage from making movies in the 70s, but Darrow and I do a lot of content around Final Fantasy, and there's nothing of the development of the Final Fantasy 7 in terms of videos or anything, and you just sort of think why? It's just so, I guess because in films they had cameras around to film each other, but it's just it's such a shame that to not have that experience to sort of look back on.
Absolutely. And if you, at the minute, actually, if you go on the PS5 console, we're rolling out a set of development diaries for Control. And one of the videos we uploaded as well is, Jessie Faden herself, Courtney Hope doing a studio tour of Remedy. And if you look at the numbers on that video on YouTube alone, they're astonishing. People love that content. It's so engaging and different. And it just, I do think we probably should be a little bit more open with things, especially when people have this idea of, why can't you just fix this issue? It's an easy thing to fix. And it's you've no idea. Obviously, there's a process we've got to go through. There's submission, and we are as transparent as we can be. But of course, there are still NDAs to respect, and we have to be always very mindful of that. Yeah, I think we're getting better, but I think there's still room for improvement.
Yeah, 100%. And on that, so do you have any tips for a community manager trying to handle sort of adversity during a particular campaign or just general managing?
I've got a little bit of experience working, with those difficult situations. It really does depend on the situation itself. There are things you can control and there's things you can't control. if there's a fire and we have a solution, we'll rally the troops, we'll get together, we'll sync up, and we'll come up with a plan of action that will hopefully put that fire out. I think, before any kind of major before any launch or update launch or anything where we're putting content out there, we work on an escalation plan so we can really put things into context. One of the things that I've really learned over the years and is around knowing when a problem is actually a problem. I think it's very easy to get bogged down with focusing on a couple of negative comments where people are screaming.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to take a step back and you have to go, actually, how big of a deal is this? Are we dealing with something that could potentially do more harm than just making me feel a little bit sad right now? And if we think, actually, this could have a bigger effect on the business, we then come up with a plan of action. We take our time. If we need to put reactive comms out there, we will. Again, it really does depend on the situation. If it's a group of trolls, for example, doing what they do best, we don't react to any of that. If things get a little bit heated, 505 are very good in understanding that things can get a little bit rough in community at times, and we're always encouraged to take a step back, switch off the laptop, don't look at anything. I've been in really difficult situations and upper management have said, Ant, don't worry about it. Take a step back. Somebody once said to me, and it's the best piece of advice ever, is, don't worry about these things. Remember, it's PR, not ER. And I really like that. I really like that way of thinking. And my old line manager, he used to always say to me, don't worry about it. Ultimately, what we do is important to us. But when things get a bit too much, just take a step back and remember, it's video games. It's a fun industry, but ultimately we're not, say, surgeons or whatever. We haven't got people's lives on the line as such.
Yeah.
But I think it really does depend on the situation. We are, actually a few years ago, I sat down with HR and my president, and I spoke to him about what 505 would do if any of us ended up in a bit of a difficult situation. And it was clear that, there's certain things we can do, but there were certain gaps there that needed filling. And I said, wouldn't it be a good idea if we, get together and actually come up with a social media policy that outlines what the company will do to protect us and what we can do as individuals if we find ourselves in a difficult situation. So we worked with a legal team. I believe it was an external legal team actually, where we basically put this policy together that would be given to every single member of 505 and new recruits as well. And this policy basically tells you this is, what we'd expect from you. And it's all common sense, obviously. It encourages you to, if you want to talk about the fact you work at 505 on social media, of course you can. But the most important thing in all of this is a section around, it's an escalation plan. So we make it really clear to everyone, if you find yourself in a situation online, whether you work in community management or not, this is what you can do. And this is what 505 promises to do. And it was so reassuring to get that support. And because I think not everywhere really understands social media and community management. And if somebody bothers us online, it's like, oh, just ignore them. It's difficult when it's your actual job.
Yeah.
And we feel very protected at 505, at least, I certainly do. But it makes it very clear in there that around, if you find yourself in a difficult situation, these are the things you can do. And that's mostly targeted towards us who don't do this for a living. But we also mention in that if you feel like you need to speak to somebody about this, you can obviously speak to your line manager, but go and speak to a member of the community team as well, because we're in a position to be able to offer advice. But again, it really does depend on the situation. Certain situations we have to react. Other times it's just better that we stay quiet, let the dust settle, and then get our ducks in a row, find out how big of a problem this is. We've got tools that allow us to track, whether a problem is an actual problem or not. And then we work on a potential solution.
I think that's really cool. I think that's really, really nice and reassuring because, as you said, I don't know many other companies that have that kind of implementation. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm grateful that they really supported us on that because it is important, and it is still a role that I believe is in its infancy compared to others, and there's still a lot to learn, and we need to adapt, and social media is evolving at such a rapid pace that it's really difficult to keep up, right? And
if there was a dictionary for like social media sort of just terminology and just everything, it would have to be updated literally like every second.
And I'd love a copy of that, because I even though we're, part of our role is to stay on top of trends, it's really difficult to stay on top of trends when you're trying to do your day job as well. And especially in games as well, where you're not just dealing with Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all that. You have Steam forums, you have PlayStation 5 game hubs, you've got Xbox clubs, you've got the Nintendo news feed, you've got subreddits. Oh my
gosh.
It's never ending. But
you need to be like one of those people with like 6 screens. Like, those like sportscasters who have like 6 screens just constantly updating all the time.
The absolute dream. But I've already seen that our electricity bill has gone up significantly in the past year, so it's probably not a good idea.
You look like you're like in the Matrix, like like those guys on the ship, just like with just kanji running up the screen the whole time.
It feels like that sometimes when I've got TweetDeck open and I've got an ultra wide, and my other half comes up the stairs and he's like, "What on earth is that?" It's my job. It's fine. It's fine.
It's okay. This is fine. This is fine.
Exactly. This is normal. No, this is not normal. I'm like, no, I know it's not. It's fine.
And meanwhile, you look like Charlie in freaking Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Just like, it's okay.
Exactly. And then it's really not sometimes, but.
No. But yeah, you gotta get the poker face. It's the community manager, community poker face.
Absolutely. I mean, it is quite scary how many platforms are available to us right now. And I think once upon a time we had this mindset of, okay, we've got this new IP coming up and announcements coming up, and we have to be on every single platform, and we have to have a social strategy for every single one. And I remember years ago, I had a social calendar for every single individual platform. I'm like, I can't do that now.
I know. How on earth?
Together for 1 month, for one title, let alone for every single platform. But the one thing I always tell my community team is, whenever you are assigned a new title, do your research, do your competitor analysis, look at the platforms that are actually going to make a difference here, and invest all your time and energy and, budget into those, as opposed to trying to be on every single platform and spreading yourself too thinly.
It is actually absolutely insane how many games are on so many different platforms now. Like, we're doing the SPG Indie Games Club, and I was just astounded at like these 5 games that we have. Like, pretty much all of them were on Switch, all of them on Steam, all of them on Xbox, all of them on PlayStation, all of them on Mac iOS. It's just like, I was just thinking like, this is insane. Like, how, like, I can play this on whatever I want.
Yeah.
That is insane.
It really is. And then from a community standpoint, when you release a game on multiple platforms, bear in mind our community team is very small, and you launch a AAA game like Control on multiple platforms at the same time. Oh my God. Yeah, it can get very overwhelming, but that's why the planning part of community management is so important, because if you get your ducks in a row, and you have got those conversations rocking and rolling with other members of the team from other departments, you all work in sync, and most of the time it's fine. But when, things don't go to plan, we have a plan to try and resolve it most of the time.
A whole book of plans.
Yeah, I mean, exactly that. But yeah, of course, there are times when things don't go to plan. And then it is okay, we need to sort this pretty fast. But it keeps us going.
Yeah. keeps us sharp.
Absolutely. I mean, definitely that.
Well, I have some questions from the community. This first one is from Denali McLaren on Twitter, who asks, if you were stuck on an island with one game to play on one console, what would it be?
I'm looking behind me now and I can see my many consoles judging me Like, oh, it's easy. My PS1, that was the first console I owned, and it would be Spyro the Dragon.
Oh, Spyro. I did see Spyro coming up quite a bit when I was asking for questions for you.
Oh, he's my absolute fave. Absolute fave. I have so many amazing memories playing that game. I remember when I was very, very young and my mum and my dad were going through a divorce, and Spyro and Crash were my games. And I used to pack my PS1 up and go and visit my dad on a Friday night and plug my PS1 in and play Spyro. And it's definitely Spyro. And I remember when the PS4 version was announced, and I was sat at my desk and my boss was sat next to me, and I saw these screenshots come up, and I was having a bit of a moment, and he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm not okay. I'm really not okay right now."
Oh, no, I totally get what you mean. Yeah, like it's that like weird nostalgia / you almost like take into that point in your life where you're just kind of like, oh my God, this is everything, my childhood fantasy and everything all amazing.
Exactly that. And Spyro was one of the games that really heavily inspired me to get into this role and the industry. As well as Crash. They were my two serious like go-to games growing up.
Yeah. I never owned Spyro, like I'm ashamed to say, because I only had a demo. I had a demo disc.
That's how I discovered Spyro, through the demo disc.
Yeah, like that was what I played all the time because I had enough money, so I saved up a lot of money in order to get my PlayStation 1. It was the first console I sort of like bought myself. And I only had enough money to get the console and not actually get a game. So I had the demo disc and I played the Spyro one like so many times. I played that demo, but my first game was Crash.
Amazing.
So it's just, that time was just so great. Like I really loved the PlayStation 1 era. I mean, I loved PlayStation 2 as well, but like PlayStation 1 was just, it was magical.
It was. And I realized a few weeks ago that I think it's Pokemon and Tomb Raider and I can't remember what other games are all celebrating, and Crash and something else.
Oh, they're all celebrating anniversaries.
25 years. And I'm thinking, wow. I mean, that is quite scary, but I mean,
that is really scary.
What a year for video games.
I know. Like you think of all of those games, like you think Resident Evil was on PlayStation 1, like Silent Hill, and it was crazy. Like the PlayStation 1 era was insane.
It was one of the best, and I absolutely adore that console. And I'll never forget my PS1 broke, and I know it was awful. It was a terrible time. I mean, my 10, 11-year-old self just didn't cope very well with that.
No.
But I did get it working by putting the disc in, and I had to spin the disc with my finger, shut the lid, and then switch it on and hope that it would like boot itself up.
Catch on.
Exactly. And it did. And I'll never forget, it was 2001, I think it was. And I went to see my dad on Christmas Day, and he said to me, "I know your PS1 is on its way out, so I've got, don't worry, I've got a second-hand one that I can get from a friend." He said, "But you're not going to get it till after Christmas." And I was like, "That's fine, that's okay." And I'll never forget that there was this box that he asked me to open. It was a big spherical box, and he said to me, "What do you think is in it? You're not allowed to open it straight away. I want you to guess." And I was like, "I have no idea." I was maybe it's oh my God, is it the PS1 that you said you were going to get me? He's like, "Well, you can open it and find out." So I'm expecting this secondhand PS1 that actually works. And I opened it up and it was a PS2.
Oh.
And my 11-year-old self was, oh my God, I was losing it at that point.
I can only imagine. Like, that's amazing.
And
what a trick.
And he did that for my 18th. My dad was very much I am buying you your PlayStations, regardless of how old you are and regardless of whether you're in work or not. I am buying you your PlayStations. And I'm going off on one now, but when the PS3 came about, I went to visit my dad on Christmas Day. I opened all my presents, and he went into the kitchen to cook some breakfast. And he said, I put a little bookmark in the Argos catalogue because it was something else I wanted to get you, but I wasn't sure if you wanted it or not. So I was like, okay, cool. And the Argos catalogue lived in this particular cupboard, if you will, in my dad's house. And I opened the door and there was just a PS3 sat there.
Oh,
yeah, he was very good at this sort of thing.
I love it. Oh, I love it. That's so great. But yeah, like, I mean, oh, catalogs as well. Yeah, that's going to take me on a tangent as well. I just miss it. I really miss having like proper catalogs. But yeah, but that's like a completely different conversation. But that is so sweet. And yeah, no, I mean, live on PlayStation. I really wish I could have gone to that PlayStation pop-up store in London when that happened. Did you manage to go?
So I was, so that was, I think, for the 20th anniversary, wasn't it? Yeah. So I think, what was I doing that day? I was working in Oxford actually at the time, and I was thinking about going down, but I can't remember why I didn't. But I do remember actually going to E3 and PlayStation had like a big merchandise stall outside.
So nice.
Like, oh my God, I'm here for work, but I'm going to go and spend all my money.
I know.
And I did. I bought this big Last Guardian plushie. And oh my God, it's amazing. A little Trico. And I bought so much stuff. And it was terrible, but it was wonderful at the same time. So bring back events. I need to spend my money on tat.
Let me spend my money.
Exactly. I just want to spend my money on tat. I just want to go to gaming markets again. I just want to go to events.
I know.
I miss them.
I know. I do too. It's like where I go. Like I'm so looking forward to see like an insert coin stall again, just to be like, hi, beautiful things.
Bring it on.
It's like even if I just have to see, you know, those steampunk sort of costume things that you see at like all conventions now. I'm just like, you know what? All right, bring them on. As long as I can get my events, I'll buy I'll become a steampunk lass. That's fine.
I just miss spending money on overpriced, horrific burgers and
I know.
Complaining that my feet are sore and complaining that there's nowhere to sit to eat my overpriced, grotty burger.
Yeah, I have to sit on the floor near a wall or something. Like a wall would be great.
It really would right now. I mean, I could go and sit on the sofa, but I'd prefer to be sat on a stone floor in a massive arena surrounded by noisy people. Yeah. I miss that so much.
I know. I can't imagine when it's going to start up again, but like there's nothing like going to an expo or convention. It's just fun. You torture yourself, but it's fun.
If you don't leave one of those events with a sore throat and some kind of weird con flu afterwards, then you've not done it right.
No.
So that's I don't miss that side of it, but having that means you've generally had a very good time.
It's a small price.
It is, and fingers crossed. Oh my gosh, hopefully in the next year or so. I don't know. None of us know, but I look forward to that day when we can get back to these things because, from a community standpoint as well, it's a big part of what we do, and the number of people we get chatting to at these events, the number of players that come up to you and go, "Oh my God, you're the voice of Control," and it's like, yeah, it's just little old me. And I just miss that. I miss engaging with our communities face to face.
Yeah, no. And I think like there's a lot of opportunities that get missed by not having that as well, because like some people there's not really the opportunity to be like, hey, can you do a private Zoom call with me right now?
Exactly. It's robotic, isn't it? And it doesn't feel natural at all.
You have to be so much more forceful, and you're just like, I'm not that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yes, another question. This is from Olive on the She Plays Games Discord. Is there a specific campaign that was your favorite to work on, and what was it, and how did it go?
Working on... Actually, I'll take a little step back and start with the title, and then I'll mention the campaign, but... Working on Death Stranding is honestly one of the highlights of my career. It really is. And I'd be wrong if I said, you know, I didn't have a little cry here and there along the way, because it's just opportunities like that don't come up very often. And when I found out that I was going to be working on this, imposter syndrome kicked in big time. And I kind of went, oh my God, I don't know why it's me that's doing this. Maybe somebody else should be doing this. And then when I got myself together, it's like, right, okay, there's a lot of really cool stuff we can do with this. The sad thing about this is about, working on Death Stranding at the time we did, was the fact that COVID kicked in and it really took away potential opportunities. I had so many ambitious ideas and we couldn't do any of that because obviously COVID prevented us from going anywhere.
Yeah.
So we really had to think outside the box. I feel like I've developed a really good relationship with the team at Kojima Productions. I love them to bits. They are phenomenal, and we worked on a social campaign around. It was basically AMAs. Death Stranding is all about establishing connections and bridging gaps, and especially during last year when everyone was so divided, it was really important to me to try and bring people together. And this was done in numerous ways, but I was really, really keen to get the community involved in our activations. And I put forward this idea of doing AMAs with members of the Kojima Productions team, and it got greenlit, and we went ahead with that. So we ran a number of AMAs. They were all hosted on the Death Stranding fan run subreddit, and we had an amazing time with that. I think the great thing about it was the community could get involved. We don't work obviously with the PS4 community. We're PC only, but they were able to get involved. They were able to share their knowledge and all that good stuff with the upcoming PC crowd. But these AMAs in particular were really fun because I don't think the community had the opportunity to speak to Kojima Productions much before.
Yeah.
And this activation really helped to bridge that gap. Our aim and objective was to obviously generate awareness around the PC version of Death Stranding. And these AMAs were a really cool way to do that. We had some of the developers on board. We had Aki Saito, who's head of communications, get involved. And we had Tommy L. Jenkins, who's Die Hardman in Death Stranding, get involved. And the way we did them was a lot of fun as well. We'd end up we set up a Zoom call, and it was really weird. It's like, I'm on a Zoom call and Yoji Shinkawa was just there. And Tommy L. Jenkins is just there, and I'm just having this conversation, and we're getting questions from the community, and we're going back to them with these really transparent answers, and they were just a lot of fun. And the way we measured success with that was obviously through engagement and all the boring KPIs, but the sentiment was so overwhelmingly positive off the back of those. And we did a couple, and then we thought, no, let's keep doing this because it's building up this really positive community. And they were a lot of fun purely because it really did help to bridge that gap between the community and the development team, which is really important to us as community managers.
Yeah, no, I think that is the thing. Like, and especially for like Japanese developers as well, it's such a hard. It's such a rare opportunity because, like, a lot of the times, these kind of opportunities are only awarded to like big publications who have translators, and then they get to like interview themselves and potentially ask some boring questions.
We try and involve with Death Stranding in particular, we try and involve our community as much as we can. At the minute, we're running some photo mode events over on Steam where we invite the community to submit their best shots, and we get the team at Kojima Productions to pick out their favourites. So which is brilliant. And the community love this stuff because they feel like they're being heard, they're being acknowledged. We had Yoji Shinkawa get involved a few weeks ago, and the reception off the back of that was overwhelmingly positive. And today we just announced the winners of our latest photo mode event, where we had some of the development team from KJP be the judge, and we are planning another one as well. I'll keep that secret for now, but that's probably another activation. I know it's 2, but wherever we can get the community involved like that is so rewarding, and we see huge success off the back of it. We can't do what we do without our community, so why not involve them where we can?
Exactly. It's like yeah, exactly as you said before. It's bridging the gap, and I think that is a more effective way of making games more of a shared experience, other than we are the games developers and we're the game, like we're the publishers, or we're this, and then you're the consumer, and this is where our lines are drawn. Like,
exactly,
you know,
it is interesting. Like working for a publisher, certain people always go, "Oh, you work for a publisher, you know, it's all about the money, blah blah blah." And it's like, no, you know, we are effectively an extension of the development team.
yeah.
And we all share the same goals, we all share the same ambitions. And as a publisher, yeah, I try really hard to, I say not be corporate as such, but I do kind of go out there and go, hey, you know, I'm the community manager for this game. Be transparent with me, be honest with me. We are human. And as a publisher, actually, our sentiment's really, really positive most of the time. We have a really solid group of advocates who, no matter what we publish, no matter what genre that game falls into, they are always there, and it's really nice to have that support.
Yeah, completely. And then one last question from Danielle on the She Plays Games Discord, who asks, considering the current climate, what changes do you think are coming for the future of community management?
I like that question.
Yeah.
It's a really difficult one to answer because, as we've already said, this is such a fast-paced industry, and this role is evolving at such a rapid rate. I think, as I've said already, as more platforms come onto the scene, and it seems like it's happening really quite frequently now. You've got TikTok that's appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Is it Clubhouse? I can't remember.
You have
I feel
like
old
the
now.
Stadia. You have like...
It is. There's so much going on. I think what will change is our priorities. Once upon a time, like I said, we try and be on everything, and it's just not realistic anymore. When you work for a publisher as well, here at 505, we have titles coming through thick and fast. We are quite a small team in the grand scheme of things. I think people look at 505 and think, oh, you must be the size of EA or Activision or whatever. No, globally, I think we're a team of around 200 people. So while we have teams in the UK, US, China, Japan, and across Europe, we are still quite a small team. So we have to be really effective and efficient with our time and focus on those platforms that matter. For us as CMs in the games industry, a lot of our focus actually at the minute is on, you know, those first party platforms. So like I said before, the PS5 game hubs, the Xbox clubs, is a Nintendo news feed. Then you have Steam communities and all that good stuff. So we invest a lot of time in those platforms, but it really does change. I don't really have a clear answer as such, because none of us really know, and it is quite unpredictable actually. One thing we are doing a lot more of compared to what I was doing a few years ago is we're dipping into existing communities more and more. We did this quite a bit with Death Stranding actually, where we didn't set up a Death Stranding PC subreddit, for example. We saw there was an existing community there, a very well established community. Yeah, okay, they're built with, you know, the PS4 players, but then we thought to ourselves, hang on a minute, this is a really healthy community. Why don't we look to speak to these guys and see if we can do stuff together? Why create your own communities when there's healthy and well-established ones, you know, elsewhere?
Yeah.
And we ended up running these AMAs that I spoke about on the fan-run subreddit. And we had a moderation team that were already there who knew how to manage the space, and they're an amazing community anyway. We didn't get a single issue come up, but they were there if needs be. They were our firefighters. I think we as community managers, as more platforms come onto the scene, we need to get out of this habit, I said this is only a personal opinion, but of always assuming we have to create things from scratch. And there's no harm, like I say, in dipping into all these existing communities that are here, there, everywhere, and just having an official presence within them. We've run AMAs on like the Nintendo Switch subreddit, for example. There's over, I can't remember what it is now, but last time I checked, they had over 1 million people on there. And it's like there's a massive community here that we can tap into. And that's what, you know, we do tend to do that quite a lot now. And even if it's just us rocking up and going, hey, Antonella here from 505. We've just dropped this asset over on Twitter. If you guys are interested, here's the link. Check it out. And it's working quite nicely for us, is that kind of approach. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. And there's no harm in doing that. Of course, we have our own platforms. Of course we do. But I think if you've got very well established and healthy communities that exist already, there's no harm in just having an official presence within them. Or if you do want to create your own subreddit, just go and engage with those guys and say, look, we are going to create our own official space. Do you want to be part of it? In a moderation sense or whatever. So I think we're going to do probably more of that going forward. We see huge value in that. I think UGC is going to continue to grow. And by that, I mean, I'm doing some kind of like side stuff within 505 where we're going to try and showcase user-generated content more often, because that stuff, performs really well because people love acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And especially when you've got a feature like photo mode, which exists in most games now, there's so much potential there. I think we're going to do a lot more stuff around that going forward. I firmly believe that photo mode is one of the best retention features to exist in modern day video games.
Completely.
And yeah, I genuinely think more of our content going forward is going to focus on what the community creates and celebrating that. Because no one likes to see sales posts and the kind of boring nitty gritty stuff, but I'm a firm believer in celebrating the communities that we manage, and I think a lot more attention is going to be put on UGC going forward.
Oh, I really hope so, because I think that is I'm a big advocate for that, so that sounds amazing to me.
Yeah, and the cool thing with 505 as well is the fact that there is, as I said, there's very little red tape. So if we bring the ideas to the table, I've never, in the 5+ years I've worked there, no one, as far as I can remember, has ever turned around and go, nah, we're not doing that. That's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
We are encouraged to explore whatever platforms are available to us and utilize them as best we can. But if somebody turns around and says, actually, this platform is not relevant to us, we don't think we'll see significant growth on there, then usually the company go, that's fine, we'll invest our efforts elsewhere if that's what you believe in. But this is such a fast-paced, evolving role, and it's really difficult to kind of see what the future holds, if you will. I just think more platforms are going to come through. There'll be an expectation for us to at least explore them. I think it's not really community management as such, but I do think digital events are going to become more of the norm going forward.
Yeah.
Communities can engage more with that stuff than being forced to go to an in real life event, which I have mixed feelings about. I think it's cool that we've obviously got the technology to do that, but as we've already said, there's something really special about events. But I do think digital events are going to be more of a thing going forward, where the community can engage in real time. But who knows who knows, but at least we're here for now. Absolutely, exactly that. And I say, I think we should definitely count our blessings that we're in a position where things are going all right for those in games generally. And I certainly can't complain.
Well, that's it. And I mean, thank you so much, Antonella, for coming on the show. It's been really great.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been really good fun.
That's it for this episode of She Plays Games. Be sure to follow Antonella on Twitter at @animatedant. Also, if you want more episodes of She Plays Games, be sure to subscribe and follow me on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube by searching She Plays Games, and on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at She Plays Podcast. If you want to be on the show or want to nominate someone to come on the show, you can email me at sheplayspodcast@gmail.com. See you all next time on She Plays Games.